Hello everyone, my name is Owen Gotimer. I'm the community manager at TechWell. I'm joined today by Max Saperstone. He is the director of test and automation at Coveros.
That's correct.
Yeah, Max, thanks for joining me.
Absolutely, Owen. I'm excited to talk about Agile today.
Yeah, so Max and I are going to be talking about an Agile Manifesto principle. And that principle reads, business people and developers must work together daily throughout the project. Max, do you want to talk about a little bit about what that means?
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things, actually, before we even get too deep into it, that I want to kind of just point out is, while that's absolutely like a core principle of Agile, it needs to be taken a little bit further. It's not just the business people and the developers, it's actually the business people, the developers, and the testers, because it's really an important thing. One of the big issues that actually I've run into in trying to get people to work properly doing Agile is the fact that testers are still often siloed. They're still oftentimes doing waterfall style testing as opposed to actually Agile development. I mean, really the whole point of Agile is to make sure that we're iterating, that we're constantly getting feedback from the business, and that we're delivering exactly what we want to be doing at the end. And if the developers aren't constantly talking to the business side, well, then there's no way that can actually happen, because they're off on their own side, they're developing their own thing, and hopefully it'll show what the business wants. But at the end of the day, if they're talking continuously, if every single day they're having a conversation, hey, is this what you want? Is this what you want? You know that you're actually going to get the right product at the end of the day. That said, if you don't include the testers, if you don't include the rest of the organization, well, the testers are going to be completely out of the loop. They may be testing for something that's not exactly what the business wants. Or maybe they and the business are talking and the developers are off on their own side, which means you're going to have those extra cycles that you're going to be spending doing extra development that doesn't really work. There's this great conversation that's supposed to happen in Agile when you're doing your grooming, when you're talking about actually figuring out what your stories are. And it's referred to really as the three Amigos. You want the business, you want the developers, and you want the testers. And you want all three of them to sit down and have the discussion of what is it that we actually want the product to do at the end of the day. And so you have all three sides of the product development team, because the business really is part and should be part of this product development team on the exact same page. And the discussions are had, great, we're going to design it this way. These are what the tests are going to be. This is exactly what the user experience is going to be, so that when you're done, you get exactly what you want, and you know exactly what you're going to test. And you can be doing then your testing in line with your test development in line with the actual software development, so that as soon as the developers are done, they hand it over, or even better, they just run the tests themselves if they're automated. And there's not this long wait of, oh, great, I have the software, what is it supposed to do? It's not exactly working the way that I thought it was going to. I need to go talk to the developers about what it's doing. No, you get it, and it's great. This is exactly what we discussed. Hey, why isn't it passing this test? We talked about this outline. This is exactly what's supposed to happen. And you get this very nice BDD, behavioral driven development discussion happening, because you're all talking about the same terms, you're all talking about the same thing, and at the end of the day, you should then very easily be able to end up exactly where you want to, because you've had these discussions at the start. It's this idea of making sure that everyone's engaged, everyone's on the exact same page.
Right, absolutely, and I think that's such a good point here for Agile, that this principle really does cross all parts of the software development lifecycle. What are some signs that your organization, what are some signs you might see that people are not following through on this specific principle?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the big things that you'll find is when people open up bugs that aren't necessarily actual problems with the code, they're more things that the app doesn't work exactly the way that you thought it was going to. So when you start opening up usability issues, when you start opening it up, it works that way because that's how it was designed. Any of those bugs, anytime you ever hear a developer say, oh, that's not a bug, that's a feature, well, clearly you didn't have these conversations to get everyone on the exact same page, which absolutely is not what you want. You want to make sure that you're starting at the exact same spot. Anytime that you see testing really lagging behind development is also a pretty good indicator of the fact that not everyone was on the same page, because clearly testers are out of the loop, or clearly they didn't understand exactly what it is that they were going to be getting, because these discussions about exactly what the final product was isn't actually happening at the beginning. And what you see is a lot of organizations, they're doing agile development. They're not agile because testing is still happening in this kind of waterfall progression. Testing bleeds over to the next sprint, or you have these long regression periods. And what that means is, well, you didn't do the right planning up front. The business and the developers, the testers, they all weren't together talking and coordinating with each other.
Right, so when you have that situation where you have the agile development and then the siloed testing, what are some steps initial steps you might be able to take to try to solve that issue and really move to becoming agile?
Absolutely, and the biggest thing that you can actually do for that, I think the best thing is to get the testers engaged early on. And this really, I think, comes down to the Scrum Masters and making sure that the testers are actually even invited to a lot of these early a lot of these early Scrum activities. Such as your sprint grooming and your sprint planning. I can't tell you how many organizations I've been in that the testers just aren't even invited. They're an afterthought. And the very first step is great, get them there. The next step is get them engaged, actually have them ask questions. One of the things that I do as part of my work is I attend a lot of these sprint grooming sessions and these sprint planning meetings, not because I need to be there to help out with planning, but in order to poke and prod the QA, in order to make sure that they're asking the right question. Because the developers are they're gonna talk about the story, they're gonna talk to the business, and at the end of the day, they're gonna estimate. And before that happens, I go, well, what about testing? Have we actually discussed what we're going to do? And what's great is it's not really just about testing, because then you talk about the outline of, oh, these are the 4 different sort of tests that I want to actually be executing. And as a result of that, the business is there and they say, oh, actually, we need this use case, or no, that's not actually a valid thing. And just by bringing up testing and what you're going to be talking about, it engages the business side because you're talking about functional requirements. You're talking about what the end product is actually going to be. But you have to have QA there because it helps drive these discussions and it makes sure that everyone's actually in line, again, from the very beginning.